What was your "this person is on another level of stupid" moment? Story 1. While driving from one big city to another, I stopped in a small town to eat at a fast food chain in Texas. I order my food, get my orange number 10, and sit down and wait for my order. The lady who was bringing out orders has this "I give up" demeanor as she's calling out numbers that guests aren't claiming. Each time this happens, she speaks to a couple tables to seemingly figure out who food is for. Then I hear her call for number 55 while holding a tray of food for one person. I was number 54 and noticed I was the only single party guest there. We make eye contact and she heads towards me. She confirms my order with me and says, "Sorry, for some reason the computer prints one number higher." I immediately ask, "Well, then why don't you just call out one number lower than what's printed?" She freezes and I can see the gears turning in her head. I tell her thank you and she goes on her way. Story 2. This was my first experience in retail where I learned what many customers would be like. Seasons were changing, so we put a lot of shirts we had to get rid of in front and made them 50% off. I was working the register when a woman came up to buy her things. I rang her up and could see a look on her face like something was wrong. That's when the following happened. Lady: "Why is this so much?" Me: Pardon me?" Lady: "This should only be $10, not 20. I thought maybe her item was on sale, so I asked her if she could point out the sign because I wasn't aware of it. It was a small store and we didn't have to walk anywhere. Lady: "This sign here." Me: "The sign says that all shirts are 50% off." Lady: "Yes, so why is this full price?" Me: "Because it's a hat." Story 3. Back when the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster happened, we were discussing how the reactor had failed in science class. 5 minutes into the conversation, a girl piped up and said, "I don't see what the big deal is. Why can't we just regrow it?" She dead-ass thought a nuclear power plant was a plant. Story 4. Going through security and the person says I need to show a different form of ID. I ask why, because I gave them my driver's license. They say they need a U.S. document like a green card or something. I'm a U.S. citizen. Then I realized I explained how District of Columbia is long for D.C., like Washington, D.C., as in the capital of our country. Oh my God, I can relate. I'm from New Mexico. The number of people that think we are a foreign country is astounding. Story 5. I used to work with a girl who was sweet, but so dumb. We were in a meeting once, and somehow someone mentioned baked ham. The manager said, "I hate baked ham. It looks like human flesh." The girl I mentioned was sitting next to me and looked horrified and whispered, "Does ham really come from people?" Story 6. I locked my purse with my keys and cell phone in my apartment. I went to the office to ask maintenance to let me in. The woman at the desk said she would call maintenance and ask for a phone number they could reach me at. I said there wasn't one because my cell phone was locked in my apartment. She insisted that I needed a number. I said I could give her the number, but that I won't be able to answer it if they called. She suggested I get my phone out of my apartment so that I could answer when they called. I rolled my eyes at her and said if I could get in my apartment to get my cell phone, I wouldn't need maintenance to let me in. She never did understand me, but maintenance did show up 10 minutes later. Reminds me of the time my cell phone completely died. Wouldn't power on even if I charged it, so I called Apple support. Guy asked what's wrong with my phone. I told him it won't turn on. He asked me to power it on so we could troubleshoot. I tell him it won't turn on. He sighs and tells me he won't be able to diagnose the problem if we won't cooperate and power on my phone for him. Story 7. The time I watched someone who had missed their exit on the highway stop on the shoulder, back up, turn around, and go up the entrance ramp. I could not fucking believe it. Edit. A couple of fun details about this incident to really highlight its stupidity. The next exit was a few miles up the road. Going to that exit and then turning around might have delayed the drive by 15 minutes tops. There was no traffic ahead. I watched this person do this as I was coming down that same entrance ramp to get on to the highway. I remember that my driver's ed book had an explicit warning against doing that. At the time, I wondered why they have to put something so obvious in there. Later, I realized it was in there because lots of people do it. Story 8. Summer camp counselor made all the kids on a school bus keep the windows up on a hot day because They could feel the air conditioning coming from the front of the bus. It was so hot, and I, maybe 10 years old at the time, had to explain to the 40-year-old counselor that the air conditioning they were feeling was the one coming through the bus driver's open window. She still didn't believe me. I begged her to ask the bus driver to confirm the bus did not have air conditioning, but she didn't want to bother him while he was driving. It was like a 1-hour bus trip. She finally got hot enough and asked the bus driver if the bus had air conditioning, and he jokingly said, "The bus only has air conditioning when the windows are down and the wheels are turning." She then looked back at me and said, "See, I told you the bus has air conditioning," and proceeded to force us to keep the windows up. Story 9. There was a girl in my high school who forced the teacher to pause a documentary about people living in mud huts in Africa because she was upset that they were showing us fictional movies in a history class. It took everyone else in the room to convince her that people actually live like that in some places. Wealthy area living for ya. Story 10. Dude burned his own convenience store for an insurance claim and stopped the milk and bread deliveries the day before. He's too caring for the criminal world. Didn't want to inconvenience the milk and bread companies. Story 11. Demolished my right foot and a bunch of other shit in a motorcycle crash and had to have the top of my foot removed. Guy I worked with asked me when it would grow back. I explained that the skin and stuff was going to have to be grafted, but the tendons and bones had to be removed and were gone forever. He looked me dead in the eye and asked, "Why don't they just cut the whole fucking thing off and let it grow back?" Story 12. I'm an identical twin, and we have been asked all manner of utterly ridiculous questions about it throughout my life. But I think the stupidest was when a girl once asked me, "Do you ever get yourselves mixed up with each other?" I responded, "Are you asking me if I ever sometimes think I'm my brother?" She replied, "Yeah." No, I don't. My brother and I used to work as a grocery baggers. One day we were working adjacent checkouts. A customer saw us and asked if we were twins. I answered yes, and her follow-up question was mind-blowing. "Are you brothers?" Story 13. I got a bad grade in geography in high school. My teacher kept trying to push me and suggested I talk to my parents about it. I just told my mom I was failing geography, and she said, "How fucking stupid can you really be, Justin? How do you fail geography? It's just shapes." I'll never forget that one. Story 14. I work for Parks Canada in Yoho National Park. I have been asked the question, seriously, where do you keep the animals at night? Twice in my career. To this day, I still find great joy in imagining what they thought was going on each night as we collected every large animal in the parks. Story 15. Coworker bought a low-flow shower head. He filled the bathtub using the low-flow shower head because it would use less water. That's like cutting a pizza into 6 pieces because I couldn't eat 8. Story 16. I was friends with a guy who believed those fake Apple adverts like Apple Wave, microwave your phone for instant battery charge. I was so dumbfounded when he actually fell for it. When I saw him the week after, and he had a new phone, it all clicked for me. Story 17. A friend didn't have coins for a vending machine, but did have $1. She folded up the dollar and forced it into the coin slot, and then did not understand why she did not get her item. For me, I had a concussion when I was getting x-rays taken. They gave me a lead blanket to wrap around my twig and berries. I took it, wrapped it around me like a cape. I could not understand what they wanted me to do.